Welcome back to our episode on timeout. As I started to explain before the technical issue, that our time out to children, for children, is really to show assertiveness while we are being kind. And that brings up very stable kids. I also mentioned that when should timeout be used? Number one, if the child misbehaved, broke a rule, endangered his life or the life of his sibling or his brother or sister. And third, if really did something that ran in the street or something like that. So misbehavior, breaking a family rule, going against the direction or guidance of his family. Why to use it? Again, to balance between being warm, kind, fluffy, and also being assertive. Now, how to do it? I start by saying, number one, you have to inform your child of the timeout process. What is the procedure? What are the mechanics? So I advise that you bring your children, and usually they are between the ages of 2 and 10, and you talk to them about should they misbehave or break a rule. You will be sitting in that chair, which is not in a dark room and not in their own room because it's full of toys. He will not be talked to, he will not be played with, and he will not have any electronics. During that period, you are going to think of what you have done wrong in order for you not to do this again. It's not going to be too long, my son. It's going to be only 1 minute per year of your age. So if you are 5, I'm only putting the timer, the kitchen timer for 5 years old, and once it rings, you are back and everything's fine. The second thing that you need to do in order for you to have a successful timeout is it must happen immediately after a misbehavior. You cannot say, in the morning you were hurting your brother and now it's 4 p.m. It has to happen immediately after. Very few occasions we allow a timeout to happen later. Maybe you're in a store buying something and your kid did something wrong. There are two schools of thoughts. Some people recommend that you still do a timeout in the shop. Ignore those who are looking at you. Tell him to sit here and you stand next to him for the next 5 minutes. No talking, nothing like that. And he may throw a fit, he may have a tantrum, and you may have to endure all of that because he wants to embarrass you in front of people. But you should not tell him or her, you are embarrassing me, nothing like that. Occasionally, there is another school of thought that this is the time that you may postpone time out until you go home. I have heard also and read from some psychologists recommend if something happened in the car, that you actually find the safest time to go on the shoulder or in the exit and you take a time out. And you tell them we're not doing anything until we correct our behavior. And you wait the 4, 5, 6 minutes that you have to do. So far the timeout must be done after the behavior immediately. You must inform the child of what you are planning to do. The timeout place must be in a visible area and not surrounded by toys or electronics, not in a dark room, not in his room because he may sleep, he may play with something, and it should be in somewhere visible. The next step, you must tell your child why he's taking a timeout. And you have to give it in the most short method, sentence, without the lecture, without raising your voice, without losing your temper. You are very clear. You did not listen to me when I asked you to put your toys down. You are going to time out. You did not listen to me to stop hurting your brother. Time out. I told you to have a shower before you go to bed, and you did not. timeout. And then you will go for the shower and so on. So you have to practice these things, in my opinion, with your kids when you guys are in a good mood. Make sure your child understand what's a misbehavior is, what's a bad thing that he will be punished by a timeout for. You can't just do it without explaining. I'm going to answer some questions that came and then I'll go back. What is the right answer to tell my daughter who's 10 years old who told me that she had a crush on a friend or even older than her? On a friend or even older than her with 8 years? Her dad and I give her a lot of love. Why this is happening? I need to save her. Please advise me. So number one, there is nothing wrong at all with your daughter, and she is not lost, and do not be crazy worrying about her. For a child of 10 years old to have an attraction of an 18 years old, it doesn't bother me at all, and it can happen many, many, many times. Some of them have a crush on their teachers. Some of them have a crush on someone in the TV. All what you should do, you should always talk to your daughter in a very clear way. Don't scare her from love. Don't scare her from being attracted. Tell her it's completely normal for a young girl to be attracted to a young man who is maybe much older than her but still young. Tell her that her body is like the altar in the church, and her feelings and her mind is like the altar and the table inside the altar. Would you bring something bad there? You have to preserve it. You have to put the curtain. You have to close it. No one should enter and play inside this amazing altar. Always do not scare your daughter from her body. Do not scare your daughter from her normal feelings. These are hormones surging and making her like somebody. There is nothing wrong with her doing that because she can control it. She has feelings towards it. So explain to her it's normal to have feelings. But in the same time, you have to understand, darling, that when you grow up and you become maybe 22, you will choose the right person. At that time, your heart is full of God, and you will choose a godly person to be like your dad with me. And always, when you talk to a 10-year-old, please make sure never to tell her this is against God, because it's not. Never tell her this is a sin, because it's not a sin. Never tell her you are going to hell, or I know what you may have told. She may like to talk also to her father of confession. She may like to talk to a Sunday school teacher to just calm her feelings down, but please do not scare her. And the way you are talking, you are writing, you are yourself need to calm down. I think you are too scared and too worried. Just pray for your daughter, and there is nothing wrong with what she has. Believe me, 3 months from now, she will not even think about this kid. Her hormones just are very unstable. Another question. I want to start a single parent family ministry. As a single parent myself, I see my own children suffer because they always hear about parents and dads. I want them and other kids to know through circumstances a family can have different faces, not necessarily a mom and a dad. Could be grandparents, etc. Is that okay? God loves them just as much as those with mom and dad. I fully agree with you. And by the way, I have a soft spot to every single parent, whether due to separation or death of one of the two parents. And I always say it's difficult enough for a mom and dad to raise a child. So those are super dads and super moms who are alone raising a child. And I want you to know that most of us in the church educators, group pray for you and pray for all similar people like you, because we all believe you guys have an amazing talent, and God will give you a lot of blessing and will give you grace because you need it. And let me tell you about resources though. There are several churches actually, I believe in the Southern Diocese, that started a similar service. However, please reach out to me separately and let me see how can we can help each other in finding the group of single dads or single moms who want to be together and support each other. I think it's a very, very good idea. I also want you to know that when a kid has no dad, I think that's your question, for any reason, a couple of things must happen. If the dad is still alive and he may be a bad husband but a good father, please do not prevent him or her, if it's a mom, from seeing the children. Number two, do not speak bad about the other parent, especially if he is a good parent. Number three, if there is a chance they meet with that parent, it makes the kids much more stable. Remember, we are living in a society where gender identity is completely confusing. And having one parent alone, unfortunately, makes this issue even more prominent. So, trying to balance that, if the other parent is present in their lives, please do not preclude the kids from having them. The second advice I would like to give, it's very important that the kids recognize the father figure in some other ways. Now I'm talking because you said I'm a single mom. But if you are a mom, let the kids find the role model in a father in the church, a pastor, a priest, and a Sunday school teacher who is a little older, who is kind and knows how to deal with kids who may have a single parent. If this is a single dad, sometimes it's even easier because there are so many good moms in the church and many of them have grown so many kids and now they are even older than you as a dad, and they will be happy to do that service, to check on them, to take them to buy shopping things, especially when they become in the adolescent period and they need some female stuff, and you as a single dad do not know how to do this, or you may feel embarrassed. So I have found so many moms are so willing to be the moms of those who are motherless. And believe me, it's a blessing to them and a blessing to everyone who share the burden with a single parent. Thank you for your question. Coming back to tips on for timeout. So to tell your child why he's being taken for timeout is of paramount importance. You cannot just grab the kid and throw him in a chair and he doesn't know what did he do. But please do not make it a lecture and do not lose your temper. The other thing is you cannot occasionally change your timeout method. Your timeout method has to be consistent. So it has to be the same chair all the time. It has to be the same time all the time. It has to be the same pattern of speaking. Exactly, I'm speaking. You hit your sister, you are going for timeout. Stern, clear, to the point, no discussions. Why, mom? Why this? Why? You don't speak. You just point. He has to sit in timeout. And you in your practice, you tell him, if he refuses timeout, the timeout increases 1 minute each time he refuses. So it's becoming 6 and then 7. And you just point to him, 6, 7. And all of a sudden, I can assure you, he will be willing to do it. One of the things also that we all need to do as parents of young children, please make sure that the child is aware what are the rules of the house. If the rules of the house that he has to eat dinner with you, then he has to stop playing with his toy. The rule of the house, he has to come down and sit and listen to a Bible study with dad and mom and his sister, then that's the rule of the house. If the rule of the house to take a shower, fine. Whatever the rule is, please emphasize it, make it clear, and when you enforce it, do not be angry at your kid. Now, what happened at the end of the timeout? So the timeout usually ends, let's say, at 5 minutes, because most of the kids are around 5-6 years old. Basically, you really need to bring the kid, you sit next to him after the timeout, and you go and review what happened. Some people claim this is not important, but I'll come back to that controversy. But I find this much better. I want you to re-explain. Did you understand why you were in timeout? Yes, Mom, I did not put away my toys when you told me. Good, I'm glad you know. And whenever he puts his toys away, you must praise him and you must encourage him. And make sure that day you find something good he did. Oh, you did a great job praying today. I'm very proud of you. I like very much the way you put your toys in an organized way. I'm very proud of you. Thank you very much for taking care of your little sister while she was not able to climb the stairs. Whatever. Find something to praise your kid and don't let the day go by after a timeout without explaining the reason of the timeout, to praising him or encouraging him. So that's what we call end of timeout. The end of timeout also, that you need to never smack or hit or do something angry like this. Not allowed. And by the way, science have shown that these things may not even work as good as a simple discussion like that. Of course, there are kids who are ADHD and they are hyperactive and all of that. Still, timeout can work, but usually maybe less than 5 or 7 minutes. And sometimes you may use a card, like a red card, and then a green card when he has to come out. They are more responsive to colors than giving orders like the ones I have given. If the timeout was for not following your direction, repeat the direction again, because your child needs to know what is the direction you want to do, what advice or what order, what commandment you are given. And if he continues to refuse it, then he is going back to timeout. So, ending of timeout, you explaining again. If he tells you, I'm not going to throw my toys away, I'm going to hit my sister as soon as I see her, then he's going for timeout again. But if he understands, and even if it goes for another 5 minutes, believe me, the next time he probably will be much more behaving. Another question following the single parent issue. How can the church help single moms and their kids emotionally and socially? Does a big brother, big sister program exist within the church? How can one start? Also, how can a church provide a single mom or dad support? So again, all the ideas are amazing, and kindly send me a private, either your name and number or something. Nobody will see it. I will be the only one who will see it, and I will reach out to know which area you are in, and I'll find the correct group. Now, the big brother, big sister, we are using it already in some churches. So when we have a widow, a female widow, we right away find an older brother to her children, or an older sister to her daughters. And the same if this is a male widower. Um, so the big brother, big sister must be emphasized, and the priest as well as the Sunday school teachers should help out the single moms and dads in finding who can guide their kids growing up. Again, adolescents in their teen age need so much the other figure. And as I mentioned, they become more balanced when they know that there is a man they can reach out to, or a mom can reach out to when they need to talk about something bothering them. It could be being bullied in the school. Probably they want to buy something private clothes for them, and she can't tell dad that she wants it, and so on. Now, the other thing that you are mentioning, and I will definitely try to find out if it's available in some churches, and how can we help you finding the right group, is really the idea of can we have a support group for single dads and another support group for single moms. So this is, I'm not sure if it exists. It sounds like a great idea, but to tell you the truth, I am not aware if it's happening or not. So I would like to research that and see what's happening. I think there is one more question that came. Okay. How do you give time out to special needs kids, autism, ADHD, and mental delay? Yes, thank you so much for this question. And again, I have a very soft spot for those parents because they are carrying amazing burden, and I know God will never let down their care and their love and their patience and their ability to contain their anger and frustration. But as I said, number one, those kids cannot be blamed for being hyperactive. It's not fair. But whenever you want to do a timeout, usually you will raise the red card. And I find from my studies and my dealings with some kids, if you tell him, if you do something wrong, if you hit your brother, if I raise the red card, you have to go and sit in that church for 3 minutes. You are not going to do anything for... Autism is the same thing. They will respond more to colors. They don't respond to verbal. ADHD, usually they respond to verbal very well, but they may not be able to maintain the quietness that you require. So you have to lower your expectations a bit. Also, I'm sure your home is more equipped to work with a kid who may have some of these special educational issues that you have to be careful with. I find also some of those children are so smart in many things. They may have a delay in some mental capacity in some of the regular school issues or school studies, but they are very smart when it comes to tasks. Very smart when you tell him, come with me, and you take him and you say, your toy, this is your toy, need to be placed here. And you show him here. And then you give it back to him and you tell him here. And the more you practice scenarios, it has to be not verbal only. It has to be verbal and visual, and sometimes tactical. So you using the touch, so he has to hold the toy, and he has to hear the order, and he has to see the place. So use visual, tactical, and and verbal as well. And those will, of course, not enough, but they are more or less can be helpful. I want to also bring another question that came. What you as a parent should do when your child is in timeout? And it's a very good question. One of the things that you should never do, you should not enjoy your time in those 5 minutes. Don't rub it. Don't put his show of, I know, whatever he likes to see on TV on loud so he knows that he's prevented from it. No, that's not a good idea. The other thing you should not do, you should not talk to your kid. You're passing by him, you don't even acknowledge his presence. He asks you something, you don't respond. And you don't look at him and you don't talk to your child. Because time out, he has to understand there is a disciplinary action is happening. The other question that came that somebody read about time in, and I'm very happy that the audience are very well read. So there is a controversy about time out, not a big controversy. Some people believe that time out is not a great idea. We should only do time in. And time in meaning whenever a child does something wrong, you take him in your bosom, you speak to him in kindness, you be kind with him, you don't be ever stern or assertive, but only giving in or time in rather than time out. Most psychologists believe that time in is not effective because you need some sort of boundaries, some sort of rules, and if the child grows up knowing no rules, it will be very difficult to raise the child as an older gentleman in the future. The other thing I want to say, that this controversy brought in an idea, time out, time in. Where the time out, you are stern, assertive, you don't talk to your child, you are not playing with him, he is prevented from playing with his sister, the toys are not with him, the electronics are not with him, he is sitting for those 5-6 minutes. But once he is done, there is a time in. You embrace him, you put him in your chest, and you start talking to him about why did he go through a timeout. Does he understand the rule? Does he know what did he break as a rule? What is he going to do next time? And that's what I call time out, time in. So thank you for this question. Another question is asking, what about two children that they basically hurt each other, and what is the consequence to both children for misbehaving? So putting two children time out is allowed, provided a couple of things. Number one, they are not together, each one in a different place. If you have more than one corner or more than one room, then each one in a different area. Number two, they are not allowed to talk to each other. They are not allowed to be talked to by parents. And please do not choose sides. Do not start by saying who hit who. No, they hit each other. Who started this? Don't ask that question. It's a bad question. Because with all respect, either one of them will lie or one of them will feel very bad that you took the side of one brother versus the other. So putting both children in time out is better because you don't take sides and you don't reward one of them that he accepted or participated in fighting. They both are equally disciplined or punished, and after this you still bring them both back and you talk to them about post time out discussion, which what was the reason for this? Do you know why you were timed out? And even if they try to tell you he started, you say, I don't want to hear this. Both of you are wrong because you hurt each other. And in our house, no one uses any type of physical touches. It's not allowed here. It's not allowed anywhere else. You can talk to each other nicely And if one of you has a complaint, you come to me, but you are not allowed to hurt each other. Um, um, Now, one of the things that I would like also, just almost like more tips for timeout, um, the announcing the timeout. It has to be clear. Clear warning about timeout must be clear. You cannot just surprise the kid by pulling him. Some of you may have read or heard about a technique called 1, 2, 3 magic. It's a very interesting technique that a lot of educators use. And the whole point, it's exactly time out, but you time it. So once he didn't put the toys in their place, they say 1. But of course you have to explain that you are going to do this. So you have to bring your child and hopefully your husband as well. So both of you are aware of the technique. And the technique is very simple. So if you explain to the child, if you did not listen, you misbehave, or you physically injure yourself or somebody else, I'm going to say 1. If I say 1, that means you have a chance to stop what you're doing, and everything will be cool. If you don't, and you continue misbehaving, I'm going to say 2. If you continue to misbehaving, when I say 3, you're going to time out. So almost giving the idea of the 5-second rule that I spoke of earlier in the show, but rather in a count way. If he is autistic or ADHD, you have 3 cards, a green, a yellow, then red. Once you get to the red, he is going to time out. And time out, as I said, usually it's a little less for those who are special children who, in my opinion, they are the meek and loved by our Lord. The second point I want to make is do not just make it's about 5 minutes. No, it has to be 5 minutes. And you have to have a timer. And your kid has to see that the timer is clicking. Is time yet? You don't answer because the timer is shown, it can be heard and seen. Is it time yet? You don't answer. And all of a sudden he will hear the bell or the ring. And you tell him, okay, come out. When he comes out, you sit with him. The other tip is you must make the time out time boring. There must be no fun during time out. Otherwise, he is missing the point of discipline. It has to be boring, meaning you cannot have a toy and he cannot be in his room and he cannot be playing with his sister and he cannot have his electronics and video games. Time out means he is prevented from this. Let me answer another question. Oh, sorry, okay. I thought there is another question, but I think I missed it. So coming back to the point of I was trying to make, which is the timer or the clock. Explain it to them. Again, if they don't understand, I think you can use any type of timer that can be either visually and also can be auditory as well. When the timer goes off, call an end to timeout, and it doesn't matter if your kid is still crying, he still has to come out. You cannot say because you are still crying, stay in timeout. We cannot just break our own rule. You have a rule and you told him 5 minutes. The 5 minutes finished and he heard the timer, so you tell him come out. He's still crying, you sit with him and explain. You can give a time out another time if he continue to be fidgety or something annoying to his brother or sister. Um, Now, oh, I see. So there is a question about I like to put a toy during the timeout so my son can be using the time better. So this is not recommended. Putting a toy in a timeout can be used because it basically he will like to be in timeout. He would tell you, I would love to be in timeout because that's the time he's going to play with his toy alone and maybe his sister cannot share the toy with him. So I don't think that's a good tactic, and I think most people will ask you to avoid doing this because at the end of the day, it doesn't work this way. Um, let's talk now about this question, using the time outside home. So a kid apparently is making a big fuss when they were shopping, and the mom is asking what to do. And this is probably the most difficult timeout. The reason it's difficult because your kid will use the audience to make you not punish him. So you went to Macy's or I know what, you want to shop for something, and all of a sudden he starts running and he starts pulling things. So you tell him, sit in this couch, time out. So he starts making screams and cries, and people are passing by looking, and maybe somebody is coming to you, can we help? And if I were you, which unfortunately or fortunately I'm not in that position anymore, but the best is to completely ignore the audience. Completely ignore the audience. You have actually three options. The first option, which is the best, the right one, that you do time out there and then. He sits there for the time that you give him, and you look at your watch and tell him 5 minutes. You do not leave his side because you don't want him to run. He is not allowed to leave. He cries and screams and you completely ignoring him. People are passing by asking you, thank you very much. No, everything's fine. And you continue until 5 minutes had passed. And then you bring him, you talk to him. If he doesn't listen, you put him again for timeout. Your second option, you cut your shopping cycle short and you go home. But in the car, please do not talk to him, do not counsel him, and do not give him a whole lecture. Because as soon as you arrive, you are going to say what you did in the mall was wrong, and you are going for timeout. And no questions asked, no anger, no that you embarrassed me in front of people, no, I'm not going to take you with me anymore. None of these things. You are very stern face. You are not angry, although I'm sure you are boiling inside. And he sits and he takes his time out as soon as he goes home. The third is basically you do it in the car. So you take him and you sit him in the car, and either you sit inside the car or you stand outside the car, but he has to see you. You cannot just leave him in the car and disappear. No, he has to always see you, that you are present, because otherwise he could be scared. So you sit next in the driver's seat, he sits in the back, time out, and you explain to him why he's getting the time out, and because of what you did inside and your behavior, you're taking a 5 minutes time out. If he behaves, you can go inside the shop again and continue your shopping tasks. And finally, I want to end with always have a time in after you have done a timeout. Always bring your child in your heart, in your close to you whenever you have done something that's really you put him in a timeout. Now he comes out. He's still your beloved son. to whom you are very pleased, and you explain to him what happened, and you agree that things will move to become better, and from there onwards, that's it. You don't have to keep reminding him. Should he do it again, unfortunately, it will be time out, followed by time in. I hope you enjoyed this episode from our show, Family Matters. I will be honored if you continue sending your questions throughout the week. I promise that we will bring other experts to these shows to answer your questions. Hope to see you another time. Have a great week. Thank you.